The ballroom glittered under golden chandeliers, laughter echoing through polished marble floors. But amidst the sea of luxury, a frail little boy in a small wheelchair sat silently near the edge of the dance floor, the billionaire's only son, forgotten in the glamour. Then, something unexpected happened. A young waitress, dressed modestly in her white uniform, knelt beside him, whispered something gentle, and took his trembling hand. As music swelled, she lifted him slowly, letting him lead a dance step that would stop every eye in the room. And in that moment, the billionaire's heart began to crumble, not from pride, but from truth. The evening was meant to celebrate wealth, power, and prestige. A grand charity ball hosted by Alexander Crowe, a man whose empire stretched across continents. Guests from politics, media, and business filled the room with polished smiles and expensive champagne, but Alexander wasn't smiling. His son Liam sat quietly beside him, born with a physical disability that made walking nearly impossible. Alexander loved him, but from a distance, too proud, too consumed by the image of perfection. To him, sympathy was weakness, and pity was unacceptable. Among the servers moving discreetly through the tables was Claire, a part-time waitress studying nursing at night. Life hadn't been kind to her. Her mother's illness, her unpaid bills, her quiet resilience. Yet there was something in her eyes that glowed. Empathy, the kind that didn't judge. When she saw Liam sitting alone, eyes fixed on the dancers he could never join, her heart ached. As the band played a slow, elegant tune, Alexander mingled with guests, unaware of the small storm about to unfold. Claire approached Liam softly, noticing his fingers tapping faintly to the rhythm. She smiled, and something stirred inside the boy, a spark of courage. And though she was just a waitress, she decided to do something no one else dared, let him feel free, even for one dance. Claire's decision wasn't spontaneous, and it was human. She'd seen that look before in hospital wards, children watching life pass by, unseen and unheard. As the music deepened, she placed her tray aside and slowly knelt in front of Liam. Her hands, warm and trembling with kindness, reached for his. The boy hesitated. Around them, the room spun in golden blur, no one noticing the quiet moment blooming between them. But soon, a single laugh from the crowd drew eyes toward the unlikely pair. At first, whispers rose. A waitress? Dancing with the billionaire's son? Some laughed, some frowned. The orchestra hesitated but continued. Claire gently helped Liam to his feet, supporting him as he leaned against her arm. His legs shook, but she didn't let go. Each step they took was fragile, uncertain, but real. The music guided them, not the room. Alexander turned just in time to see his son's face lit with joy, something he hadn't seen in years. But the joy was met with murmurs, judgment, and quiet sneers from guests. One man whispered that it was inappropriate. Another muttered about class, another about appearances, but Claire didn't care. Liam didn't either. For once, the boy wasn't the billionaire's burden. He was just a child discovering movement, rhythm, and freedom. As the dance continued, the energy shifted, the laughter dimmed. A hush filled the hall as people began to realize what they were witnessing. Not defiance, but connection. Claire let Liam lead, letting his tiny steps set the rhythm. He smiled wide and pure, his laughter filling the silent hall. Even the band slowed their tempo, synchronizing with his fragile pace. Tears welled up in Alexander's eyes, though he didn't understand why. He was a man built of stone, pride, and control. Yet this scene cracked through everything he'd believed about strength and dignity. For the first time, he saw compassion, not as weakness, but as courage in its truest form. When the song ended, silence hung thick in the air. Liam stumbled slightly, but Claire caught him with a grace that melted the last ounce of distance between them. The audience, unsure whether to clap or stay silent, watched as Alexander slowly walked toward his son. For a moment, no one breathed. The billionaire stood there, eyes locked on the woman who had done what he never could, give his son a sense of belonging. Whispers resumed, about class, about propriety, about race. Some saw only a white waitress and a rich man's child. Others saw a scandal in motion. But Alexander saw something else entirely, a mirror of his own failings. He realized how often he'd confused love with luxury, care with control. The dance had stripped him bare. His power, his pride, his money, all seemed seemed meaningless before a single act of kindness. He knelt beside Liam, something he hadn't done since his son's birth. The gesture was simple, but in that moment it carried more weight than any deal he'd ever signed. He thanked Claire silently with his eyes, understanding that she had given him something he'd never known how to buy: perspective. The crowd finally broke into applause, but it wasn't for wealth or power or spectacle. It was for grace. A grace that came from humanity itself. And though Claire quietly returned to her duties, her presence lingered like music in the air, forever shifting something inside everyone who'd witnessed that moment. That night, after the lights dimmed and guests left, Alexander sat beside his son's bed. Liam was asleep, still smiling faintly, his small hand resting against his chest. Alexander had never known peace could look so small, so fragile. He thought of Claire, her courage, her kindness, her humility, and realized how blinded he'd been by the walls of his own world. The next morning, he made quiet changes. Donations flowed not to corporate charities, but to hospitals, schools, and homes that nurtured children like Liam. He set up scholarships for nursing students in honor of a waitress who reminded him what real value was. He sought out Claire not to thank her publicly, but to offer her opportunity, one that came with dignity, not debt. In time, Claire completed her degree and became a pediatric nurse. Liam walked again, not perfectly, but proudly. And every year at the same ballroom where their dance first began, Alexander hosted an event, not for elite, but for those who had once been invisible. The chandeliers still gleamed, but the glow came from somewhere deeper. Sometimes a single act, one small dance in a world of judgment, can rewrite everything we think we know about love, pride, and worth. Because in the end, the real measure of wealth isn't found in how high we stand, but in how deeply we kneel for others.